Hello everyone, Luke, and if I ain't got a weapon, I'ma pick up a rock, Bruce here. Today, I'd like to discuss with you a topic that's near and dear to my heart. No, not these guys. No, not this guy. I'm talking, of course, about our set of ever-shrinking human freedoms and how they're impacted by the advent of home surveillance. Sort of a novelty just a few years ago, video doorbells have exploded in popularity with no signs of stopping. In fact, given their relatively low price point and easy installation, it's plausible to assume that in a few more years, they could be as ubiquitous as smartphones.
But Luke, I have a smartphone.
I know, we all got them. So, love them or hate them, video doorbells are here. They came fast, too. So fast, in fact, that you might not have had a chance to fully digest the quite frankly massive shift that they present for modern society on the whole.
That sounds serious.
It is. Just think about it. Cameras everywhere, essentially popping up overnight. Do we really expect this not to have some sort of effect? No negative repercussions? Did anyone ever stop to ask if the trade-off would be worthwhile? You don't have to be a Luddite to ask these questions, though of course you may be made to feel like one if you do. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, here we go. 1. The proposed purpose versus the real-world application / pros and cons. Ring, the leading brand, and to my knowledge, the original video doorbell, has, since its inception, had a few main selling points. 1. See who's at your door while you're away from home. 2. A security measure against thieves, especially package thieves. And 3. Peace of mind. Whatever that means. There are others, of course, but I'd hazard to say those are the big 3. The first 2 are self-explanatory because they are features of the product, as where the third is more amorphous. It means different things to different people. But we know that Ring's use of the word is a summary of selling points 1 and 2 because one of their more popular slogans is peace of mind anytime. This refers to a feature which allows you to check on your house through your smartphone. Pretty basic, pretty easy to understand. Wait a minute. How many of us can look at our lives and with a straight face utter the words, I need more technology integrated into this thing? Hey, you, dumb guy in the back. You? Even you know you don't need more technology? Okay, cool. Follow-up question. Will it give you peace of mind, this newfound power to check your home's perimeter? Or will it, as I suspect to be the case, add a new layer of neurosis to the already impressive stack of tech-centered compulsions that go hand in hand with modern life? I don't know, I guess we'll see. Still, I'm sure it's helped ID some burglars or petty thieves. Probably there are a dozen other useful applications for the technology. It's not the technology's usefulness I'd call into question, though. Rather, it's one of the ways in which it's being applied, namely to scrutinize certain groups of people to a degree hitherto unfathomed. Those are 2 big words, right next to each other, right on top of each other. First you got hitherto, then you got unfathomed. I feel like I'm in a Jane Austen novel. Sure. That word though, scrutiny, what does that mean? Well, Webster's freaking dictionary defines scrutiny as so yes, that word, scrutiny. Oh, you motherfucker. So yes, that word, scrutiny. The advent of security cameras means that whether in a commercial or residential area, with every passing day, it's safer to assume you're being filmed. Now, I find this very stifling, but I can't imagine I'm the only one. Most people, from the guilty to the perfectly innocent, act differently when they're alone versus alone with a camera being filmed. Here's the scenario I'd like to paint for you to illustrate my bone of contention. Okay, gang, let's say that hypothetically you work a back-breaking, soul-crushing manual labor job. Not me, of course. Ew, I would never do that. But imagine you're a goyim. And let's also say, hypothetically, that you're in the midst of another long, difficult day working at someone's massive house. You're covered in dirt and grime.
And a cocktail of deadly chemicals, and you're trying to lug a 200-pound pressure washer with a broken wheel uphill through somebody's yard.
And nothing crazy happens next. It's just another day in hell. You're very tired and behind schedule, and there's no one coming to help you.
Now let's also say hypothetically that you want to decide, and in a private moment look up at the humongous house.
Humongous what? Humongous what? Humongous what?
Humongous house. And say, what a fucking ugly piece of shit house. Does that harm anyone? Well, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. Now, imagine that unbeknownst to you, there's a camera. And as a result, this private moment was actually captured for posterity. Regardless of the quality of your work, when the homeowner goes back to review the footage, and sadly, there is a high likelihood that they will most likely call your boss and complain. Complain about what? Well, you had a moment of humanity, one in which you let slip the mask of happy servitude. Not in front of anyone, mind you. You thought you were alone, but you were wrong. Maybe you assumed that a degree of scrutiny such as that would be reserved for more enviable positions, ones with higher pay, less strenuous work, better conditions. But again, you would be wrong. Instead, your every action will be placed under a microscope and scrutinized to the nth degree. Although we'd agree if the homeowner were to hire another person to follow you around and monitor your attitude, while we'd call that wrong, excessive, paranoid, and abuse a bridge too far, and we'd be right, installing a network of cameras to do the very same thing, that's fine. So instead, you'll just have to hold your tongue until you're off that job site. Unless, the next customer has a Ring doorbell too. I mean, you don't want the current customer catching wind of you complaining about the last customer. Then they'll just know you're going to complain about them when you leave their house. Or maybe they'll misunderstand and assume you are complaining about them. So, in that case, you'll probably want to keep all that negative talk just within the confines of your work vehicle. We like to say it's kind of like confession around here, Anything is safe in here, unless your company installs front and rear facing dash cams. They're not going to do that, obviously, unless it caused their insurance rates to drop, even slightly. Then they might. Hopefully that never happens, though, because if it did, you might find that most of your life was spent in a performative state. Or as the theologians like to refer to it as, hell. And I should know something about hell. I'm gay. I'm going there. Here's a little snippet from a research article first published in March 2008, entitled The Eye of the Camera, Effects of Security Cameras on Pro-Social Behavior.
This study addresses the effects of security cameras on pro-social behavior. Results from previous studies indicate that the presence of others can trigger helping behavior, arising from the need for approval of others. Extending these findings, the authors propose that security cameras can likewise trigger such approval-seeking behaviors by implying the presence of a watchful eye. Because people vary in the extent to which they strive for others' approval, it was expected that the effects of security cameras on pro-social behavior vary with participants' need for approval. To test these predictions, an experimental study was conducted with presence of security camera and need for approval as independent variables. Results showed that participants indeed offered more help in the presence of a security camera, but only to the extent that this helping involved public or observable behavior. As expected, this effect was more pronounced for individuals high in need for approval. Practical implications and suggestions for future research are discussed.
A radiation wave hit and I got shot through a wormhole.
I suppose that all sounds fine. Maybe you suspected as much already. Maybe you favor the widespread use of surveillance, and this is one of the reasons. Fuck you. If, on the other hand, you resent the notion of being socially engineered, all the hairs on the back of your neck should just be standing up at attention. These cameras were never sold to the public as a means of creating a kinder, gentler, more courteous society, but rather a way to safeguard our loved ones, our possessions. Tomatoes motto. The former is merely an insidious bug baked into the product. So, side note, if you're in favor of social engineering, I was going to say go kill yourself, but don't. Just go socially engineer yourself. First, you be kinder, you be gentler. Keep it up for a weekend. I would be highly impressed if you did that. As a quick aside, like I said before, cameras everywhere, all installed in a short period of time and tracking your every move. It's the sort of thing you'd expect to raise alarm bells in the heads of a certain class of right-wing pundits. You know, the ones who liken almost everything to 1984. But it hasn't. And the fact that it hasn't, and that so many of them are sponsored by Ring, while it might not be a flat-out bribe, it does seem to have discouraged them from ever broaching the topic. I mean, it never comes up. Instead, it's pretty much just praising them to the rafters, only talking about the positives when there's a world of negatives. And it seems like a conflict of interest, pretty cut and dry, pretty clear. My favorite part of 1984 is where everyone in Oceania willingly pays for and then installs their own telescreens. It's riveting stuff. In closing, I feel that you have every right to set cameras up on your property. Whether you need them or not, regardless of the crime level, regardless of anything really. That said, with great power comes great responsibility. I got chills. I just came up with that now. That's good. That could catch on. I'm of the opinion that blue-collar wage slaves, such as house cleaners, painters, landscapers, runescapers, etc., given the unpleasant nature of their jobs and their meager incomes, ought to be afforded a measure of grace, especially from those privileged enough to enlist their services. Now, are they stealing from you? Please, let's take the footage to the police station. I will happily drive you myself. And if you're standing right beside them, basic human courtesy already dictates that you keep a civil tongue and that you refrain from making comments like, "This is bad. This is real bad." However, since these cameras allow us to see far more than nature ever intended, and if their use is to be widespread, some kind of consensus needs to be reached as to the bare minimum of restraint we use in its application. A sense of home camera etiquette, if you will, should be formed. And quick! Something comparable to our policy on eavesdropping, perhaps. Peer not through keyholes, lest ye be vexed. And when someone strays outside this range of etiquette to tattle on another person, perhaps we could meet them with scorn and derision. I don't know. It's just the damnedest thing. I noticed the other day that there's this noose around your neck and mine, and it's tightening by the hour. And I just thought, I don't know, I'd just tell you real quick. Okay, that's it.